But my question remains in the fact that, look, the SLA, or one of the policies of the department, speaks of 2 hours turnaround time. The document says, if there's a challenge with a particular bus, the owner or the provider is supposed to be given 2 hours to resolve that problem. So, my question to you, this is an expectation from the service provider. What is an expectation from the department in terms of your own turnaround time?
No, Commissioner, thank you very much for the question. The expectation is reciprocal for both ourselves and the service provider. It says 2 hours, they must have reported the matter to us, and within that space, only when there's notification of such, be it from the service provider himself or herself, or if it comes through a community or the school principal, we act immediately as well within that prescribed 2 hours to notify the service provider that we have learned that your bus is stuck at such and such, or we have learned from the school that the bus has not arrived, what is happening. So that time frame, it depends on who reports it first through, but we are at the center to use the 2 hours as our turnaround time, whether the service provider reports it directly to us or we get it reported through the school principals or even community members sometimes.
Okay, now let me, correct me if I'm wrong. That 2 hours turnaround time is all inclusive of yourself finding a resolution.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. The war room. What is the composition of the war room?
The war room was firstly established in 2023 by myself and the then acting HOD, Superintendent General for the Department of Education. The main aim was to bring parties together and making sure that we understand the role that scholar transport plays in the provision of education for children. And we wanted to make sure that that role is not compromised. And the war room that specifically comprised of regional directors from education, our district directors from COSATMA, and the main sole purpose is to troubleshoot scholar transport-related challenges and deal with any other transport challenges that the team picks up. It's chaired by myself as the HOD COSATMA and the Superintendent General of Education, and it's been in place since 2023. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. A response earlier from the acting chief director indicated that the war room meets weekly. Is that a correct understanding of what I heard?
Yes, correct. Let me maybe clarify. There's a war room chaired by, as she said, chaired by myself and the HOD. At that level, we have everyone sitting in that meeting. It's a big meeting. All of them sit. It's either online or physical. And there's another war room, weekly operational war room, which she oversees, which meets weekly with directors at an operational level to troubleshoot on those issues. And then they will on monthly compile an agenda for the bigger war room where they then report and say, these were the challenges this month, this is how we went about resolving them, and so on. And where they require our intervention at the level of that war room, we'll do so. But in between.
You are mentioning 2 war rooms now. Let's talk about the weekly meetings. Which one meets weekly?
The chief director's one is weekly. Ours, mine, and the HOD meets monthly.
Okay. Are there any reports that are generated from such meetings?
Well, it's minutes of such meetings would be our reports in a way. There's seedings of such meetings. And I know we haven't had one for the last month owing to reasons beyond our control, but the weekly one in the committee, chaired by the chief director, sits as indicated. but the minutes will then be a source of our report.
Okay, maybe I can get from the chief director, acting chief, and let me say chief director for now. You would also probably be adopting the same, that you have minutes for your war room meetings.
Yes, there are minutes to that effect.
Through you, Commissioner, so that we understand the depth of how this war room operates and the type of agendas they are dealing with. Maybe I would request, as my first request today, that maybe minutes be provided for especially the monthly at the HOD's level, maybe for 6 months, just to understand the dynamics of the issues they are dealing with. Thank you very much.
Is the request for the minutes for both war rooms?
I think because the first one fits into the bigger one, I'm requesting that we have for the bigger one, because they would be probably drafting the program, but you would dictate, you would advise as to how we go about it. My understanding is that the mini war room sets tone for the bigger war room. So if we get both, it might be a duplication of issues. But if we get the bigger one, we get a global picture of what might have transpired, what was the agenda for April, what was the agenda for May, what were the issues resolved in May, what was carried over. It's my thinking, but the Commissioner can advise.
It's going to depend on a number of questions that you are so going to pose.
Yes.
I suppose let's allow rather the questions to flow.
Yes.
And it will inform whether
Yes.
we would look for them.
Thank you very much. Then, what is the effectiveness of these two war rooms?
Thank you very much for the question. No, the war rooms are very effective. It's part of your daily operational mechanisms, of making sure that the services are delivered. And the war rooms not necessarily meet to deal with problems. They also meet to look into the future of provision of the services that we do, including new challenges, where, for example, education will then come and say, in these following schools we have rationalized. We no longer have learners from this school, where they are now going into the other school, then it changes the route. Then we also adjust the route design. Or no, on this school we have more learners who have registered this year. There's now the 2 buses are no longer enough. It's overloading. We need 2 extra buses and so on. So and then we also deal with issues of the budget. To say where we're sitting as COSATMA is that we've noted, for example, the last room I chatted with Remasilo, we identified the challenge of the shortfall in terms of the budget, given the routes that were not advertised as we presented, and some of the new route designs owing to rationalization of schools, which led to that budget which we presented previously. And in the report currently that you'll also see, the matter is also elevated there. So they play different roles. It's part of our daily work in a way to ensure that we improve challenges and resolve challenges of scholar transport, and make sure that we come to a level where scholar transport is what we both as a department and our sister department of education wants to see. Thanks.
Okay, now, if you were to compare in terms of periods, a period prior to the war room and the period in which the war room started, how would you categorize the level of response to problems and resolutions of problems prior to the war room being formed and after the war room being formed?
I think the war room accelerated the pace at which we were dealing with issues, because it also allowed us to have additional minds in a room, blind spots and on areas that we didn't pick up were dealt with. I remember when we started, we realized a lot of challenges that were being encountered in your Dr. RSM, for example, in the far-flung areas. But because we had colleagues now on the ground, and some of the information would come handy. So the turnaround time from the war room, I'm saying we're doing fairly okay, but post the war room, a lot of issues were resolved with speed and within our own prescription of timeframes.
Okay. We will explore, because I wanted percentages, but it's fine. We will deal with that with that aspect much later on the issues of the war room. Let me park the war room for now. We will pick it up when we are delving into other issues. The call center, which is the third modus that you are using to address the challenges. Is the call center mainly dedicated to scholar transport or program 3, or it's open-ended to other departmental issues?
Thank you, Commissioner. There is a call center dedicated for the department, but what we did is we set up the boardroom with the numbers that is solely dedicated for scholar transport issues. I even went further to give the numbers for the Office of the Provincial Secretariat. My PA is also taking the scholar transport issues, because we just wanted more people to be able to deal with scholar transport. So there is a call center dedicated for scholar transport issues, and the Office of the Provincial Secretariat is also assisting with regard to the scholar transport issues. They will just jot everything down, and then we will escalate it back to transport operations. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. There's a response that we received from the Department of Education. I think it's in the new bundle. I'm requesting my colleague to open it up for me. There are 3 numbers that were provided in the WhatsApp communication, which indicated that let me not misquote. Let me just directly quote from this. It's towards the end of the bundle. It's responses received from the department. May Commissioner bear with me? Just want to quickly go there. Basically, in the WhatsApp communication, I'm almost there when I see this document. Yeah, it's page 957. It's part B, the second file, part B of the second file, 957. There's a message, the title of the group, it's Education and COSAT Malena, it's cut off there. There are a number of cell phone numbers. There are 3 numbers provided there, 018 200. Can you see that message? Yeah, it's the only message on
Yes.
page 957. Would you say these are the numbers that are dedicated, the call center dedicated to scholar transport?
Chairperson, those numbers are 018 200 8030, 018 200 8031.
83.
These ones were for January only because it was a bit congested. But there are other numbers that are not this one, the ones that are, even if you can call now, you'll, talking about scholar transport, you'll get the person talking to that. So these ones were basically for January because it was a lot of traffic that was happening then.
Thank you very much. So let's consider this part further. You are saying over and above the normal numbers that you have that are dedicated to scholar transport, because of the January traffic, you had to add these 3.
Yes, we had to, but there's a standing call center number of the department in its entirety. And the call center can be visited at our safety house in town. It's a permanent call center. Employees who go to work there, they do nothing, it's working in a call center of the department where they will then collect all sorts of issues, including scholar transport. But over and above, we then elevated and extended couple of numbers, as the chief director also said. Her own office, including my office, is also picking up on this. But for the 3 numbers that are there, we were adding over and above. Thank you.
Okay, let me understand one thing, because now I'm getting a bit confused. My understanding was there is a call center dedicated to the department. That's the first part. Then
Correct.
there are particular numbers that are dedicated to scholar transport issues. And then in January, the third part, you had to add these 3 because of the traffic.
Correct.
Okay. Now, let's go back to the second part. How many numbers are dedicated to scholar transport?
The numbers that are dedicated to scholar transport are 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Because of the traffic, you had to
We
add
had
3
to add
more.
this, yes.
Okay.
As a call center, but still, even if you can call now on these numbers, you can still get help. But then it was dedicated solely for scholar transport.
I think I understand. So you still have numbers. These numbers might have reverted back to whatever that you set up them for, but you still have 3 that are dedicated to. Okay. Where I'm leading with this question is, the reason why you had to add the numbers, it's because of the number of complaints that you were receiving. In January in particular.
Not necessarily only the numbers of complaints. It's just that in January, you would want to call to check if the operator is on site. You would want to check the principal if kids went to school. There's just a lot of issues that you will want to then check. But what we also did, because we had a meeting with all the operators to say, if you encounter any challenges on the ground, call this number so that we work together to make sure that the kids go to school on time. So basically that is why it was not only because of complaints, but we wanted some sort of working together with education and operators to make sure that the learners go to school on time.
Okay. Let me maybe rephrase. The level of traffic necessitated that you add these 3 numbers.
Yes.
Level of traffic could mean anything from complaints and from other administrative issues.
Correct.
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it would mean then now you've stabilized since you've closed the 3 numbers, or you've redirected them back. Is that a proper understanding?
Yeah, no, definitely. As you can see, there's a statement which says these numbers will be operational until the 31st of January 2025.
Yes.
It was a troubleshooting period for that time. It's all we do it every year. It's a peak time, and we might want to make sure that the state of readiness, which we start in December, by the way, when we do verification of buses, which we reported previously when we presented. And then January we set up, it's all systems go. It's not only even the number, we also physically go to schools. The entire department, you come to our building during the school opening, you'll never find anyone except a few individuals. So all of us are also on the street to make sure that over and above the troubleshooting contact numbers, WhatsApp groups, there's also we are physically on the ground to deal with the issues. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me then just park this issue. My understanding, which we would probably assess through your entire evidence, is that you've got 3 platforms to deal with Scholar. It's WhatsApp, it's War Room, Mini War Room and War Room, and then the call center. We would probably look at those when we consider your evidence in totality. Is that correct?
Correct, Commissioner.
There are no any other platforms that are directly dedicated to dealing with Scholar other than these 3 that you've placed on evidence today?
No, we don't. But we also have a communications team that also goes on radio. For example, for the entirety of the January, you would have had the MEC on community radio stations, and both MEC Education and our MEC. So we use all other media platforms, over and above the 3 to communicate as and when it is necessary.
Okay. No, it's fine. Let's park that issue, and then we would make arguments later regarding the effectiveness or lack thereof. I want us to go to a document. I think it's in the first bundle. It's page 151, where it was submitted to this commission by the Department of Education. The first bundle, the part A, not the new bundle. I think it would be, yes. It's an invitation for inspections of the vehicles. We are still within the SLA. The first question is, in terms of the SLA, you are required to inspect vehicles. Is that correct?
Correct, Commissioner.
Okay. What is the level of involvement of the Department of Education during these inspections?
When we do inspections, colleagues, we extend the invitation to our colleagues. They are always available, and they visit our testing stations or centers where we would have assigned them for such a process, and they come and observe that indeed this is being done. And we normally, because we do it in regions largely, and colleagues do participate as well. But the process is led by COSATMA through our traffic law enforcement officers.
Okay. So you are saying the Department of Education is invited?
Yes, correct.
Are you on the letter that I've introduced as part of the evidence, page 151?
We are on page 151, first bundle.
No. I think
Yes, the letter is here from.
Okay.
Yes,
It's under your hand, right?
correct.
Yes. Can you introduce the heading of that letter into record?
Provision of learner subsidized learner transport services for qualifying and approved learner to and from schools in 4 district municipalities within the Northwest Province.
Okay. Now, when we asked for previously and bystanders in the process, this invitation you are talking about is only, or any form of communication that you have sent to the Department of Education, inviting them to be observers or to take part in whatever form or shape during the inspections.
No, I don't remember signing any letter or sending them a letter specific, but we speak on these issues. And it's not necessarily on official purposes. Just yesterday, myself and the SG were talking about issues relating to scholar transport as we prepare for learners to return. Just yesterday with Mr. Masil. So it's on and as and when required, but officially, I don't remember sending them any official letter like this one, inviting them to an inspection. But through the war room meetings, we do indicate that there will be inspections on such and such a day, and I must say colleagues do come through.
I'm listening to your wording. You interact.
Yes.
The missing word there, it's that invitation. You don't officially invite them.
In writing, because that will be an official evidence that we have invited them, no, but we do interact with colleagues. Like I said yesterday, I was talking to the SG. There's a matter we are discussing relating to Scholar, and we agreed that today, after here, we would then deal with the issue. So it's part of our ongoing troubleshooting mechanisms, not necessarily to wait for a paper that will come from elsewhere, but rather take a phone, talk to the colleague, deal with the problem immediately.
From a letter received from Mr. Masilo, I get a sense that they feel like they are passive participators in this whole process of scholar transport. I want to refer you to page 137 of the first bundle. Part of their remedial or recommendations, they are saying COSATMA and Department of Education needs to they need to conduct joint inspection or visits. From the reading of that document, to me it says they don't form part of these inspections. Because if they are suggesting that for future they need to be involved, it means they are not involved at this stage. It's page 137 of the old bundle.
Did you get it? Okay.
Of part A.
Yes, I found it, Commissioner.
Paragraph 4 on page 137. No. It's paragraph 6 on page 138. Can you introduce paragraph 6 into record?
Page 138, it says measure the departments proposed to be taken to address the identified challenges with an indication of who should be responsible for the implementation of the proposed measures.
And then can we go through the table that is presented? Using of unroadworthy vehicles, can you read the remedial actions there?
Which paragraph, Commissioner?
It's still on paragraph 6. Now we are on the
Okay.
table.
Oh, on the table now. Okay. The challenge using vehicles, the remedial action, partnering with law enforcement during joint monitoring by both departments.
This to me sounds like they are not really involved in if they would come with such a proposition.
Well, Chair, I think I'll leave it to my colleagues to expand on it. It is the document from my colleague. My reading of it is different from what the chair's, the commissioner's understanding is, because if they were not involved, there wouldn't be these war rooms, there wouldn't be these engagements, there wouldn't be this many other things that we deal with education on a daily basis. Remember, we provide a service to them. So there is no way that they would not be involved in a responsibility which we serve them with a service. We are providing a service to them because they are the ones that will say, here are the schools, these are the routes, COSATMA advertise. We then advertise based on what they give to us. Just on Friday, there's a school that parents decided to take their learners away from that school. If by the number of removes that I got from the service provider, on Friday it was sitting around 100. If by today the removals of their learners from that school, it's has doubled the number, education clearly will then say, COSATMA, this route has changed, and we know because we've spoken to our colleagues from education to say this school will be closed, the route will change. So we provide a service to them. They guide us by and large in terms of where to pick up these learners because they are responsible for education.
Okay, let me put it differently then. My reading of the situation is that all the Department of Education is doing for now is providing you with the needs analysis. Tell you that in school X, there's rationalization or there's whatever reason we need so many or that particular transport. That is my reading of the situation. Will I be correct to say that?
Correct. We provide a service based on their needs.
But they are not involved in the nitty-gritties of other issues that formally, because if you would formally invite the department, penning, the principal, obviously the principal would have been there just to observe. On the 15th, CSZ 550 NW came to drop the kids. You see, one vehicle was inspected because there are submissions, one in the anonymous submission to say, during inspection, one vehicle is brought. And during tendering, one inspection is brought. But when the implementation, the day-to-day implementation, a different car is brought, which is unroadworthy. That is a general sense we've been getting.
Yeah, maybe, Commissioner, let's separate the two issues so that we deal with the issue of the invitation, the written invitation, and we deal with the technicalities of a bus that transporting learners and the condition thereof. Let's start with the invitation part. When we established the war room, I remember very well the acting SG then said, colleagues, we don't, and that's also how I work with my colleagues, to say, you don't necessarily have to wait for somebody to be driving 3 hours to open a laptop and check if there's an invitation or an email about an emergency problem in a particular area. Let's open the lines. That was the language in the war rooms. Let's open the lines, colleagues. Take a phone call, deal with the matter immediately. By the time the matter is resolved, the letter can always come later. Okay. So, but we'll take your advice, Commissioner. It's a good advice to say write to education as well, so that we have POE that we are also inviting them in these engagements. I mean, for example, in these engagements that you are referring to, I was leading the team Young Akamudiri Mulem. The meeting was held at the airport. I went to address the meeting. My team were elsewhere. I was with colleagues from education there, but I didn't write to them. We just take a call because we agreed that scholar transport related, there were just, at that point, there were just a lot of challenges. And we said open lines, quick response, quick turnaround time, take a phone call, talk to the school, because from our side, we had to ask education, can we also talk to the school principals? Initially, we were holding back because that's the space of our colleagues. And in that war room chat by myself and the then acting HOD, and SG, we agreed to open the lines to say you can, COSATMA, you can even call school principals so that you have the direct contact. Ours is to provide a service and to troubleshoot on matters, such that by the time I get home and I open my laptop, 8 hours after the day when I was on the road, and I find a letter that says the problem that I had in the morning, I mean, this is a problem, but I know I've already dealt with the problem because of the open lines. So that's the first part I wanted, Commissioner, just to allow us to conclude of invitation. But we take the advice, we'll write to all parties, including stakeholders. On Sunday, I was with one of the community leaders in Ward 30, where there's constant challenges. And I had to go there because it's somebody that knows me, but I didn't say it's a Sunday, I didn't say I need to write a letter. I had to go and understand really what is this persisting problem of scholar transport in the community. Only for me to find that the buses are now much lesser than what the population has grown and so on and so forth. And we discuss these things and we say, no, I'm taking it to the war room. I'll speak to my colleagues and this is how we will deal with it. Okay. On the bus, the second question, the technicalities relating to a bus and how, yes, Commissioner?
Just to conclude on that one, so how do you then document what one can term your immediate response to the issues? Is there a format or mechanism that you are using just to ensure that documentation? While we appreciate that there would not have been an invite that would have been sent, but you would have attended to this challenge. So how do you then make sure that there is a documentation that speaks to how the issue has been resolved? Is there something of that format that you'd be able to provide to the Commission?
Commissioner, there would be such instances, for example, where my colleague was indicating would have done an immediate replacement of a bus, then would then have an SLA or an appointment letter to say replacement has been done as such. Here's the POE. The open line communication, Commissioner, which we also acknowledge might be a shortfall. You know, WhatsApp has limited us a lot to writing on papers because we immediately when I get something, colleagues know that's how we work. We get something on WhatsApp, send it immediately in Tatetladi, there's this problem in such and such a place, and colleagues respond and so on. So the product, which is the final POE of the resolution of a problem, would then be a replacement bus operator if we were to replace, or it will be an additional bus if it was then a question of dealing with overloading, or it will be a penalty or a termination to a provider who does not meet the requirements of this SLA. It depends on the nature of the problem. We don't necessarily record each and every one of those, but on WhatsApp, like I'm saying, it has limited us now to official documents, but we take the advice. Maybe we should elevate and keep it back there so that there's continuous recording and tracking of documentation. By the time we are not here, somebody should be able to pull a file and say on this day, this is what was said.
Okay, we will deal with the technical part that you were dealing with maybe later because there is an aspect that I've dedicated to that part. Maybe let's move on to The inspections in January, 6 to 14. Do you have the number of service providers that came for the inspections?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, truly speaking, the inspections did not happen based on the fact that we had a serious challenge of cash flow last year, and we had a meeting in all the regions with all the operators who then said to us we could not fix our buses in December when the schools holidays were, the schools were closed, so we cannot then proceed with inspections. That is the truth. So we ended up not having those inspections in January. And because we said we'll have them biannually, the next one is set for June. So they did not happen, Chairperson.
I think HOD wants to chip in. Are you fine with the response?
No, that's the response, okay. Except that in our business review session of transport regulations last week, we then agreed that while the SLA says twice a year, which is the provision in the SLA, we have now established a unit, an inspection unit dedicated to scholar transport. It's traffic officers, it's headed by a traffic head or traffic official now at Safety House, and that's part of the engagement I'm going to have with Ntate Masilo. Just to say, over and above what we have done, we have now established a dedicated unit of traffic officials who will be dealing specifically focusing on scholar transport and giving us those. So the physical being of the bus, in terms of the SLA, is twice a year, but in between we're now bringing this, these are people who will then say, pull out the bus, Commissioner, say this one, follow us, we are going to the VTS station, as they do with cars and any other, because we just wanted more hands on these inspections to make sure that we get the product that we want. Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
To add on that, Commissioner, that process started last week. I spoke to the Chief Director responsible for that program, who said he will give me the list of the buses that...
You know, these two responses, that's the last one. You're saying that you are waiting for a list of buses that have been impounded from the newly established unit. Can we verbalize the response? Because we've got transcription. You're saying there are buses that have been impounded.
Yes, I got a call from the Chief Director responsible for transport regulation last week to say they were on the ground. There are buses that were impounded, so he's going to give me the report. It's just that it was on Friday and we are going on holidays. So based on what time I'll finish today, I will then meet with the Chief Director and get that report from him.
In terms, you don't have anything in writing.
We'll still do the work, whether they're part of the technique of the team. We'll still do the work, whether they're part of the technique of the team or not. They will still conduct those stop and checks. And if they find that there's a bus that is, or a vehicle which is en route with, in this case, a scholar bus, their assessment is such that it must be impounded, they will impound such a bus. But would then the records, in terms of documentation, would then be the evidence that she's waiting for? Because remember, they must then go and record, and they take the disc. When they impound, they take out a disc, they write a report, and they would then say, these are the number of buses that we've impounded. Then our POE will be the discs and the report from the traffic officers.
I fully understand those dynamics. Maybe a response I was waiting for was that When the chief director or whoever phoned me to say buses have been impounded, or the report that I'm waiting for to confirm, the report that I'm waiting for from the chief director to speaking about the buses that have been impounded, I already know from the 3 reporting rooms, the report would be confirming and augmenting what you already know. Because already if a bus is impounded, it means kids did not get to school.
I wouldn't say kids did not get to school, Commissioner, because the call I got late on Friday, the reason why I said we must meet at least today or tomorrow is to make sure that I get this week they are not going to school at all. All the kids are not going to school. Is to make sure that we'll then go to that list, check if the operator has any additional bus. If the operator does not have any additional bus, it means then we'll have to tap into the panel and make sure that the new operator starts on Monday as and when the kids go back to school. So this week, it gives us a time to make sure that all those impounded buses are then replaced if those operators don't have additional buses. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, no, it's fine. I'm tempted that I would make a submission later to say the system of reporting is not efficient because there are certain things that have been missed, but we will make it an argument later. Let's move on to the second part, then I will leave the inspection route, the inspection of buses. In the submissions, the HOD that you made previously, it is on record. You said that the inspection took place on the 6th of January 2014. And when we are going through the information, we have been laboring under the impression to say that the inspections took place. And the natural question that was going to follow from this was, can we get reports from those inspections? But now, it's a lack of a better. It's surprising that today, it's only now under this questioning that we learn that these inspections have not actually taken place, yet they have been submitted as evidence previously on the previous sitting that these inspections took place.
Commissioner, we did report that we had 2 planned inspections, the December inspection and the January inspection, that the December inspection took place and we have planned for the January inspection, and owing to reasons that Merantwana has put forward, where operators were saying they were not paid. And we also acknowledged that we couldn't pay them because of budgetary challenges, that they could not fix the buses at the time, and the buses would not be ready for inspection for January 6 and the date that we have put for ourselves. So the presentation that she has put forward, the December inspections took place, the January inspections, which were planned, could not take place owing to the reasons that we have advanced.
Okay, because of time constraints, I still have a lot of questions on this part, but I would leave it for submissions later because on record previously, this is not what we had. Let's go on and deal with other issues. In the SLA, or in any of your discussions, when you are contracting the service providers, you only want transport that is reliable, that is efficient, that is roadworthy, and a driver must submit an affidavit that is not listed in the sexual offences register in terms of the Sexual Offences and Related Act. Basically, those are the core issues that you look at in terms of the SLA.
Correct. Over and above other conditions in the SLA that prescribe the role of parties and the condition of the service.
Okay, now I understand. One aspect for me is if the driver is not intoxicated, meets all the requirements in terms of the SLA, you are good to go.
Chairperson, the driver,
The vehicle you've contracted is on time and they're taking back on time and consistent. From my understanding of the SLA, as long as there's a driver who is an adult, who is a major, he's the only person that must drive. There's no provision for an assistant during the trip.
no, Commissioner, correct. There's no assistance, and these are some of the good lessons we'll also pick up from the Commission. But the truth of the matter has always been that it's one driver, it's short distances of travel. At most, the furthest school would be what, 60, 70 kilos? There are those, some of them are 100 and return. So it's one driver with no assistance, correct. But of course, I inferently hear the advice that there might be such. But I mean, you have 4 kilometers travels of distance, 8 and plus, because we provide transport for anyone who travels 5 kilometers and above. So it's correct.
I get that. We scholar transport and road. Who would testify from the bus about the distance that I think the responsibility of COSATMA is saying we are done. How they cross the road, the safety issues. Sanko spoke about other children when they are playing in the bus. One was nearly thrown off the window, regardless of the distance. Kilometer is a very long distance when you have kids. What is your view around those issues?
Thank you, Commissioner. No, Commissioner, we ventilated on this issue previously. And you remember when Sanko presented, there was also an element of bullying that was also presented as a matter, as a challenge, over and above what you are raising. There was also an issue of kids being bullied in the buses and so on and so forth. And we said these are the lessons we are also taking, so that when we meet with our colleagues, we'll then say, look, our focus has always been on transporting. We're worried about the condition of the bus, which most of them have not met the condition for one reason or the other. But we also picked up from the Commission through presentation of stakeholders that there's an issue of bullying that we must look into. There's an issue of safety of learners in the bus that we need to look into. And we have also now raised another issue, which we also do, but we do it at the point of entry into the school, which is Collar Patrol, for safe crossing and so on. But we don't do it when another child is disembarking in some village somewhere, where in that disembarkment anything can happen. So it's a broader, it broadens our horizon to say over and above us providing transport. Is that enough? And where I'm sitting and hearing the silent advice from the Commissioner is that we need to also take into consideration these other issues. And that's the discussion we will be taking to the war room to the work or the service that we provide.
Okay, probably speak to, can we have without catered for